Hello and welcome into the Free Outside podcast, which it's always weird to say that because who accidentally ends up at a podcast you don't expect? It's not like walking into a random restaurant and, oh, this random podcaster is playing today. Listen, and I have to reintroduce myself 23 times. No. I think you know why you're here, and that's why we have a podcast. So thanks for helping me grow the cult. I am quite tired, but, I've been really burning that candle at both ends. Is that what they call it? I don't know. But let's start over. Howdy, howdy, howdy. One of those howdies is for each month this podcast has been alive. We have beat the odds. I mean, probably all of my exes bet against us, all my haters, but here we are 3 months later, and I think we have like 10,000 listens, maybe more than that. I don't know. I'm not a math magician here. But anyways, thank you all for listening. The date of this is Monday, August 5th. And we've come a long way with this thing. I learned how to edit. Whatever, you guys don't care about this. But today's episode, it's a solo cast. It seems like it's been the first one in forever, like since I got home from Tahoe. The last one I did, I think, was a week ago or something like that from a hotel room. Week and a half ago from a hotel room in somewhere middle of nowhere, Nevada, I think. Somewhere west of Ely, Nevada, which also would be the title of my memoir, because I think every place I've lived has been somewhere west of Ely, Nevada. But since then, I was out at Tusher's, and it was pretty awesome. I just love going to races, and this one was spectacular. 10,000 feet up. Got to see Allison kill it and an athlete I coach. That was fun. And I got a request there that I would talk a little bit about some of my hitchhiking stories. And while they are awesome, I thought they're also pretty awesome. So let's get into them after this. So since it's topical, the Olympics have been pretty excellent. I mean, I have never been able to just replay something in any moment of the day. Just pretty blown away by that ability. But I was also thinking it would be really fun if just normal people were in the US, there's a lottery, and if you win, you get to go to the Olympics, and when you get there, they spin a wheel, and this random person is in an event and competing against just whatever. They're doing the balance beam or something. And that'd be great for me because, as I have always said, the balance beam doesn't even look hard anymore. It's way too wide. 4 inches is way too big. They got to make that balance beam a lot smaller. So anyways, other things since I got back from Tahoe, nothing has changed in life. No one hates me. So if you're ever wondering if you should go after a goal, the answer should pretty much always 100% of the time be yes, because nothing changed. Took a risk, failed epically. I still need to return my pack to REI. Also, if you have running pack recommendations in that 8 to 12 liter realm, shoot them over, because I'm a man without a pack right now. I am a lone wolf, no pack here. So I'll definitely need a pack because I'm doing Wasatch 100 coming up. And in training for that, I have been doing a lot of running, as you would expect for a 100-mile running race. So that out of the way, we don't do notes. We just don't do it here. But the other thing on the Olympics I wanted to add is they should add hobby horsing. Have you seen that? It's where they have a long stick and a horse head on it, and they run around and do jumps and stuff. That would be sweet if there's all the horse events, like dressage. Are there other horsing events? I don't even know. So if they have horse events like dressage or jumping, they should do that with hobby horses. Just give that culture, that realm, their chance to shine. Let's put hobby horsing, LARPing, and we can take out breakdancing. Boom, solve the Olympics. We are good to go. All right, let's get into some hitchhiking stories. That was a burp. I was just on a podcast, and the host, it was Hiker Trash Radio, and he asked me, oh, what's your podcast about? And I just sort of did exactly what I'm doing now, where it's I didn't have to hit record because we were already recording, but I just like started going off and illustrating what it was about. And I was like, yeah, he's like, what was young Jeff like? Blah, blah, blah. So I just like went into the whole podcast mode. And, I've never done something where they're like, yeah, what's the podcast about? It's like, well, let me just do it for you. Put a quarter in and I can perform. So it was like that. And I told some stories of hitchhiking. So I thought it would be fun to tell that on here, just because this episode will come out in a few hours and that one won't come out for a week. So I will win and get my content out there first. And the name of the game is Fast and Wrong is Still Fast. That's our motto over here at Free Outside. If you're looking for coaching, I'm your guy, because remember, fast and wrong is still fast. Just kidding, I do coach ultra runners. Plug for me. Okay. So in 2022, I went out to actually, let's go back even further. In the winter, like, let's say November, it was around Thanksgiving of 2021. Nope. Wrong again. Let's go back even further. We're getting close, though. We're going to go back a whole nother year. So in November of 2020, I went out and hiked the Ouachita Trail. It goes through, I'm so bad at this. Wrong again. Eastern Oklahoma. Boo. I got a lot of burps. Sorry. I ran 19 miles with 7,000 feet of gain today. Does that equal burps? Apparently. So I did the Ouachita Trail with my ex, who probably bet against the podcast, as I said earlier. So it goes across eastern Oklahoma and western Arkansas. So I did that. It was a very cool trail. It's like 300 miles. And actually was going to try to set the record on it earlier this year, but it did not work out because my friend that I was going to set the record with, he broke his foot and I got the flu, or something like the flu. I think we just call everything the flu these days. If you test negative for COVID, we call it the flu. But anyways, that did not work out earlier this year. I would love to go back and try to set the record, but I did the Ouachita Trail and realized Arkansas is extremely underrated and there's more trails out there and I need to get back into them. Bear with me. Bear with us. Us is just me. We will get to hitchhiking. Don't worry. I know you're here for hitching a ride. You're hitching a ride on this podcast and we're going to the promised land, baby. Okay, here we are. I finished the Ouachita Trail. Now we can jump forward a year and a half. And wow, there's going to be so many tangents. And I was substitute teaching just because I always wanted to be a teacher, and I thought I would just like try it out, see what happens out there in the world, see if I like any of the ages, if it's something in my future. I mean, obviously teachers are quite underpaid, so it was more like maybe I'll make my millions by being a podcaster and then I'll be a teacher. But it gave me some flexibility while I was kind of figuring out the next stages in life and ended up ramping up coaching and stuff anyways. But it was 2022, February. I decided I was going to hike the Ozark Highland Trail, through hike it. I was going to through hike it one direction and then set the FKT going the opposite way. So I flew out there. My buddy Lil Buddha, who was on an episode of this, if you're a loyal listener, then you will have listened to that one. And if you're not, become one today by listening to episode. Just kidding. We don't know. We don't number these. We do not keep track of what episode number we are on. But I flew out there and we hiked together for 3 days. So Lil Buddha and I met when I was 20 years old on the Pacific Crest Trail and just needed to reconnect. So he came down from St. Louis, I believe he was in at the time, or Kansas City. Who knows? They seemed the same in my mind. And so he picked me up, and I'm going to mess up all these names. We're going to go with Fort Smith. And we hiked to the first road crossing, wherever that may have been, and went into town. I resupplied. He booked it on out of there to go back to whatever his career at the time was. Me, myself, I continued going, and that evening it snowed. And then and it rained a ton. It was like raining the entire time after he left me. It was almost as if he was the good luck charm, and everything outside of that was complete bad luck for me, us, everything involved. So I got to Hurricane Creek, and if you've read my book, and if you haven't, you should. And if you're not a reader, there's no excuse because I also read the audiobook. So don't worry. And if you haven't read it and won't read it, still give it a 5-star review, just like this podcast. That and follow along. We need those reviews on Apple Podcasts too, if you happen to have an iPhone. And if you don't, what's up with all the green text messages? Okay, Hurricane Creek. Lil Buddha has left me. It's been raining for hours. And at the start of my book, I also talk about swimming across a river. Well, the nightmare returned. I got to the bank of Hurricane Creek. The first crossing, there were these rocks, like 2 feet below the water, so I could kind of shimmy across and hop on them. But the water was really deep and moving fast. Then I got to the second crossing. It's like 40 degrees out. Not looking good. So what do? I do my strategy. The same strategy I did in 2016 crossing the Kennebec River up in Maine. That time it had snow on the banks. This time it was slightly warmer, like 40 degrees out. But I got to the edge of the creek, and it was going to be like maybe 40 or 50 miles to get back to town, or a lot less than that moving forward, maybe like 8 or 10 miles. So I was like, if I can cross this creek, I will let myself get a hotel room. If you're sticking around for the hitchhiking stories, don't worry, we got you. So I'm like, if I can cross this, then I can go into, I think it's called Russellville, or as they call towns there, like Russellville, Town Cityville, Russelltonville Town City. I don't know, somewhere in Arkansas. But anyway, I'm on the banks and it's like, okay, this looks deep. There was a tree right there. So you could tell it was so flooded and so deep there that when you look at the water level, it's like past the trees. The trees are like in the muddy water. So it's definitely a flooding situation. And so I found this tree, I held on and lowered myself into the water. It got up to my chest and I was 1 foot from the shore. So at that point it was like, all right, my new plan, I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to take everything out of my pockets, everything out of the side of my backpack. I'm going to store it inside. I'm going to store it in waterproof containers, or I don't know why I called plastic bags containers. Waterproof plastic bag containers. And I'm going to stow it in my backpack. And then, do you know what I'm going to do? You're not going to like it. I'm going to swim across the river. And not only was I going to store all the things on the outside of my pack and in my pockets, I was also going to store my clothing. Because you know what's waterproof? Human skin. So I was going to do this naked so that on the other side, I would have dry clothes to put on to not freeze to death. This worked. This would have been 6 years prior. So it was going to work this year. So that's what I did. I stowed everything. I dipped into the water and pushed off. I knew I would be swimming immediately. And having done this now 3 or 4 times, I know that it immediately hurts your back because you have this giant buoy pushing your back, pushing kind of your neck into the water. And you're trying to fight against it just to stay upright and to keep moving across the water. So it's a doggy paddle while like leaning back really hard against the buoy that's right on your neck. So I doggy paddled my way across. The current was pretty gentle. I really bushwhacked up and down this stream for quite a while to find the place that I felt most comfortable doing this maneuver, I guess you would call it. So I got across, climbed up the hill, which was good. I mean, I did put on my clothing, got to the road and immediately began hitchhiking because it's like, everything's pretty wet. It's been raining for 2 days or something. I just crossed a river. Adrenaline's high. Not loving this. I need to do a reset because I was planning to through hike the rest of the trail and then set an FKT going the opposite way. When I looked at my weather app, it was looking like that was not only going to be a bad idea, but also a not very possible idea. So I got up to the road, hitchhiked into town, got a ride from a lovely couple, and I guess we're just going through the Ozark Highland Trail. I mean, I think we will more in depth at another point, but lovely couple. They told me all about the history of the area, blah, blah, blah. And then they also mentioned that the most, as voted on by, I'm not sure, the most racist town in America was also in Arkansas. So put a pin in that because we will get back to that soon. Okay, I got into town, blah, 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 all good. And then let's just fast forward. I finished the trail. as I'm finishing on the last night, there's like that thunder and lightning that's smacking trees and hillsides and everything around, where it's just like, I do not think that I'm going to be able to set the FKT going the other way. And then it began to snow. And so I was in like, we don't do research on this show, so I'm not going to get this right. But I was in like, let's call it Blue Valley or Blue Ridge or Blue something, Arkansas. That sounds good. You know, if you're talking about the political system, you could say Blue something, Arkansas. So I got a hotel there, and it was like, I'll just wait out the night and figure it out. It was one of those hotels that looks like they repurposed like a movie theater or something. It was really weird, but it was budget and it worked. So next door to the hotel was a tattoo parlor, and across the street was a movie theater. So you better believe not instead yet, but I was pretty sure I wasn't going to set the FKT. So with my downtime, I had a couple extra days. It was like, I am going to get a tattoo, and I'm also going to go watch a movie alone. Was it a good movie? I don't know, because I can't even remember what I saw. It was whatever might have been playing in around February of 2022 in a theater in Blue something, Arkansas. And I got a small little figurine tattoo on my shoulder to complete a moon that was already there, because I don't know, I had this weird thought that I would just like get a tattoo in every state. And I've been to 46 of the states, and I only have tattoos from like 3 or 4 of them. So I'm not doing very good in this quest, but you know, anyways. Okay, stay the night in this hotel. I have a fresh tattoo. I have just seen a movie. I wake up and it's like, okay, there is snow coming down. It's getting worse. What should I do? Obviously, hitchhike across Arkansas. My friend Lil Buddha is meeting me in Fayetteville, I guess. So what should I do? I should hitchhike across the entire state. So I got a couple rides. We might go into some of the other rides later, but one of the rides was like speaking about how he lived and taught English in like Bali or something for a little while. These are fine rides. They might come up in a later episode, but we got to get to the main event here. And so another ride was like ex-military, but super nice, and picked me up at a Dollar General. These rides were only like 15 minutes at a time. Not like the biggest deal ever. But then I was at a Dollar General where my last ride had dropped me off, and I stuck out my thumb. I maybe like got a coffee or something, or something with caffeine in the Dollar General, just so I could use the bathroom and fill up a water, because when you're hitchhiking, you don't want to make them stop until you're at your destination. Like, you're already on thin ground, and this is when it happened. So I stuck up my thumb, and I'm sure this woman is a big listener to the show, so this is all in praise. Stuck up my thumb, and this car pulls over. It's a pretty old car, but it works. It's a car, and she asked where I'm going, and it was like, oh, Fayetteville, if you're going that direction, but anywhere along the way is fine. You know, the typical spiel of like, just get me closer to where I'm going, and I'll be happy as a clam, which is a really weird phrase. So I get in, everything's good, we're putting along, and then she goes, do you mind if I smoke? And it's like, I don't like being the person that, I didn't say this part, but I don't like being the person who like tells someone how to live, but cigarettes really bother my asthma. So I did say that. I was like, yeah, not a big deal, like, can crack the windows because cigarettes really bother my asthma. I did say that out loud, proud of myself. Stick up for yourselves out there. You never know if it's going to be hurt or not, and this time it was. So she said, oh, no big deal. I'll just smoke weed instead. And before I could say any, should I beep weed? Yeah, I don't know. Before I could say anything, yeah, she was real happy driving, real good to go driving down the road. And then from there, this winter storm is getting worse. Like, snow is coming down hot and heavy. Like, well, actually really cold and heavy. Super cold, like at least 32-degree cold, because it is accumulating on the side of the road, like, and on the road. And this car, it has a couple small cracks in the front, and one of these cracks, it begins to spread. Like, it goes from this like little nick, like a rock hit it, and soon it's 4 inches, and then she does not notice at all. And then soon it's like 6 inches. And by the end of the ride, this crack is like 3 feet long. She did not seem to notice the entire time. But we're talking because she apparently didn't really want to use the radio. So it was awkward silence, and having that touch of awkwardness or autisticness in me, I felt like had to fill the void. So started talking to her, and she said some interesting things, much like, yeah, haven't had a license in a few years. Life's been really hard, but luckily my friend let me borrow this car so I could go visit my dad in Fayetteville. He lives in a mansion. We have a bunch of money because my grandma was the lost princess Anastasia. And if you don't know the story, that's okay. But this would be, man, I'm going to get this wrong because we don't do research and we don't look up anything either. But this would be the princess that may have been smuggled out of Russia around, let's call it 1917, 1918, 1919, maybe somewhere in there. I think that's around the time frame. So that would be her grandma, which wouldn't really add up unless her grandma was 110 years old and they only had kids once they turned 60. So number one, the math didn't work out. Number two, if you just use common sense, or if I did in this situation, I would be able to easily tell that this person probably was not descendant or of royal blood. And this is meant in the nicest way possible, as this is probably the biggest fan of the show. But it was a very unique ride and a lot to process of, okay, so you don't have a license. Your friend allegedly loaned you this car. The windshield has completely cracked. You have really heeded my request and chosen to smoke anything but cigarettes, so that was a nice portion for me. Yeah, and we're in the middle of a winter storm. I am not quite sure who the rightful owner of this car is, or if she is very capable of driving a car. So you know what I did? I became a cheerleader. All we had to do was get to Fayetteville. All we had to do was make it through this winter storm. It was quite a trip out there, and, you know, together we talked the whole way, made time pass. The snow came down a bunch, and as soon as we hit anything remotely close to the city limits of town, I said that's exactly where I needed to get out. So she dropped me off there, found a hotel. Lil Buddha picked me up the next day. We drove to Fort Smith, and I flew back to Montana from there. But that is one of my unique hitching stories. I would just say, if there's, you know, anything out there, a few little tidbits or not cliff notes, what do you call them? Like asterisks or citations? Nah. Well, a couple things. I did not want to offer to drive this car because once it was apparently loaned and she did not have a license, I wasn't sure who the rightful owner, or I did not want to know these things or be involved in any of this given anything. Should I have gotten out? Maybe, but it was also snowing profusely and this car was going right to where I needed to go, and we made it. Sometimes you stretch your luck. This was one of them. Pretty good story in retrospect. I think she got to where she was going. I got to where I was going. It all worked out. This is one of the stories out there. There's a lot more stories and more on my website, obviously. Well, I am exhausted, so we're going to roll and shut this thing down pretty soon here. But really awesome episode that just came out last Monday with Jameson Collins. I'm pretty impressed with that record. I really love the vibe of not quite sure if you can get something, but still go after it because who cares? Like, nothing's going to happen. Just like failing at the Tahoe Rim Trail. He got his record. I didn't get mine. I mean, he has all this positivity. I don't have that much negativity. So what's the reason not to go after it? You can either win and have success or lose and not have that much negativity. Seems like a win-win of try something good. And I got Wasatch in almost exactly a month. And the Olympics are still going. Yeah, I got nothing else, guys. Thank you all for listening. I think we'll do like a top 5 hitchhiking stories at some point, but I wanted to share this one because it's going to come out on another podcast. Oh yeah, I was just in the San Francisco Chronicle for my John Muir Trail record or something, which I think I talk about in an episode of this. If you're a loyal listener, you'll listen to that one too. And that's about it, I think, for now, guys. As always, stay elite, my friends.